Who's ready for a delicious slow cooker hearty steak and noodle soup? It's very delicious. It's really simple to put together. We're going to start off with a steak, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make it delicious before it even goes into our crock pot. I am using top round steak. This is about 2¼ pounds. Now, it's already been thinly sliced at the store, so we picked it up like that. So what we're going to do is cut these into bite-sized pieces, big enough to where it'll fit on a spoon for soup. I'm going to be cutting against the grain of the steak. Now, what's good about this recipe is you can use even like a roast. You want to cut it into really small bite-sized pieces. If you want to use a roast or other types of steak or beef, you could even use like a stew meat if you want to do that. I would just cut it down even further than what you get from the store. Now I'm just cutting these into strips, and then we're going to go and cut them the other way. And you want like that right there. Always helps to have a good sharp knife. Just get right through that steak. All right, that looks good right there. We're going to be cooking our steak in batches. We want to get them nice and crispy on the edges, lock in some flavor, and give it a nice color, like a sear. That way it looks really good in our soup. So I'm going to take a large Ziploc bag, and we're going to add in 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. To that, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And black pepper. And some hamburger seasoning, or you can use your favorite steak seasoning. And we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon. We don't want to over season. That looks good right there. I'm just going to kind of shake that up a little bit, and then we're going to put in 1/2 of the steak. All right, we're going to coat our steak pieces here in the flour mixture. Why don't you just put it all in there? All right, got it all in there. We're going to close the Ziploc bag. We're going to give it a good shake. Get all of those pieces of steak nice and coated. Now, while we're doing that, I've got my pan heating up over here. And I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of some cooking oil. Get that nice and hot. I'm going to shake this up. Make sure your Ziploc bag is nice and closed. All right, you can tell that it is all coated. I'm going to go in. Now that our pan is super duper hot, and we're going to take one to make sure. Oh yeah, you see the sizzle? That's what we want right there. So we're going to make a nice layer in the pan. Oop, man overboard. Just put in there what you can, get a nice layer. We may do this in batches. The flour on the steak will help thicken the soup as it's cooking. There we go. That'll be 1 batch, and then we have enough for a 2nd batch. We're going to brown this on all sides, give it a nice sear. Now keep your oil on hand. If you feel like you need more at any point, you can add some oil so you don't dry out your steak. All right, it just takes a minute or so on one side. I'm just going to start moving it around. You definitely want to flavor your steak before it goes into the crock pot. Okay, if you need a speedy version of this, you can just take your steak, coat it, put it into your crock pot before you've even seared it. But let me tell you, why not add that flavor to it? Give it a nice color, char. All right, when you get it all nice and brown, we're going to remove it and place it into our crock pot. Then we'll do the 2nd batch, and we're done browning. All right, Let's add the second batch. I'm going to add flour and all to it. All right, let's add a little bit more oil over here. There we go. All right, let's flatten it all out. We'll brown it up, turn it around, brown it up, and then we'll add that to the crock pot. Okay, my husband's asking me, if you're already browning up the steak, why are you putting it in the crock pot? We're putting it in the crock pot to get that steak nice and tender so that when you take that spoonful of soup, oh, it's got a nice bite to it. Nice and tender, just falls apart, and all those flavors just come right into it. Now, if you want to do this in a Dutch oven on your stovetop, you can do that also. It doesn't take as long. All right, sizzling over here. I'm going to turn it around, finish this up. All right, look at that. That's what you want to see in your soup. Adding it to the crock pot. We're going to add the broth, and then we're going to season it up a little bit more, and we're going to let it simmer all day, or half a day, however you want it. I'm using 6 cups of beef broth. That was 4, and 2 more. We're going to add some Worcestershire to it. About 1 tablespoon. Go across, go across. And then I want to give it some onion flavor without putting onion in here, so I'm going to go in with some onion powder. You can dice an onion and cook it with your steak if you want to do that. Probably about half a teaspoon or more, whatever you want to add to it. We'll stir this all together. We're going to place a lid on. Now we're going to cook this on low for about 7 to 8 hours, or you can cook it on high for about 3.5 to 4 hours. It depends on how small you cut your steak as to the timing of it. Now we still got the noodle part of it, so make sure you come back. Ooh, look at that. Now I've tried a piece of the steak and it is very tender. What we're going to do is I've got my crock pot on a high setting. We're going to add in an 8-ounce package of egg white noodles, any kind of style. This is just a broad. We're going to submerge these in. We're going to put the lid back on, and we're going to allow this to cook for about 30 minutes. Now I am using the egg noodles, so if you're using a different type of noodle for this dish, just keep an eye on your tenderness of the pasta. All right, we'll be back. Oh, doesn't that look good? These noodles are cooked through, nice and tender. Now I did add another 2 cups of broth in here to make it a little bit more soupy. We're going to go in with just a little bit of parsley, make it nice and pretty. There we go. There is my steak soup in the slow cooker with egg noodles. Let's give this a try. That looks delicious. Mmm. Mmm. That steak is so tender and delicious. And the pasta is cooked through and nice and tender. I love that broth that it made. I did use a total of 8 cups of broth, just to let you know. All right, oh my goodness. There's so much in here. I'm gonna be freezing half of this soup, and then we'll eat the other half for dinner. All right, give me a thumbs up on this one. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below and that bell notification. That way you're always notified when shows like this one here are posted. I'll see y'all on the next episode.